Hello and welcome to the segment 2 of the course Geographical Peculiarities of Kuttanad, Environmental Issues and its Probable Solutions. In segment 1 of this course, we have discussed about the geographical peculiarities of the place Kuttanad, the brief history, how the place has been evolved, the soil parameters, some of the soil parameters of the place, and how the name of the place has been evolved. Now we come into the second segment, in which we essentially discuss about the floods. The floods with regard to the environmental issues, not the other things. And in discussing so, we may come across some of the flood mitigation measures, some of the flood adaptation measures in due course of time. So, the second segment discusses about the past and present floods, land use induced issues. That is the thrust which we are going to give in this particular segment, the land use induced issues. Otherwise, suppose if there is a flood happening in a place, that is not going to cause any kind of an issue to that place for sure. Unless the land use pattern changes, the flood is not going to cause an issue, and that is going to be evident from the segment number 2 in detail. So, we go into the segment. So, here a set of pictures have been given in this particular slide. As you can see there, they are essentially some of the images of the 1924 mega flood. You are familiar with the flood of 99, Malayalam era 99, and that happened in the Christian era 1924 to be precise. As you can see in the first picture, a railway wagon, a railway engine and a railway station, and that railway engine has been, or the entire system, railway system that was existing in Munnar, that has been demolished fully in the flood of 1924. You can see pictures of demolition due to the flood in 1924 in the second picture, the third picture and the fourth picture. Essentially, the third and fourth picture, they relate to the flood which happened in Kuttanad during that time. So, many of the thatched houses, as you can see in the third picture, they were demolished fully, and the narrow bunds which separated the water bodies from the paddy fields, they also were demolished automatically. But one very major thing in this is that the population and the built up area at that time in 1924 was very limited compared to what we have right now. It is applicable not only to Kuttanad but other places also. But given the limited population, given the limited built up area at that time, because people were living in pockets at that time, Kuttanad was a large wetland system in which people were living in small pockets in the wetland, small kind of islands in the wetlands. But all those, many of those islands were demolished in the flood, and people adapted to living with flood during that time. There is you can say before 1924 flood and after 1924 flood, you can divide Kuttanad into two different era. Before the 1924 mega flood, there has been very limited agricultural produce. But after the flood, and that is a time during which the land reclamation, the Vemanad Kayal reclamation was happening in the place. Many of the farmers reclaimed the Vemanad Kayal and they converted the Kayal into Kayal lands, the paddy fields. So, after this 1924 flood, enormous amount of silt, sludge and other organic matter, they came into the place that made the soil fertile. This kind of deposition which was coming from other parts of the state, it made the soil much fertile than before. So, agricultural produce increased manifold after 1924. People started migrating into the place, very important. So, people started migrating into the place called Kuttanad after this 1924 flood, and the built up area has to go up for sure. So, that is the importance of this 1924 mega flood. Before that, the population was very limited. Even then, there were casualties, and after the flood, the fertility of the soil has increased to a very large extent, and people started coming to the place and staying over there. And then what happened? You see, this is 2018. It's a graph, as you can see there. It's a graph in which you can see the rainfall data, which is produced by the Indian Meteorological Department. So, on the left you can see the cumulative rainfall, and on the abscissa you can see the dates on which the rainfall happened in the 2018 flood. You can see two curves in that. The green curve represents the normal rainfall which happened during the month of June, July, August, etc. And the red curve represented the rainfall which happened during 2018 during these months, and you can see the severity which happened over there. The amount of rainfall, amount of water which came into the water bodies of Kuttanad was very much, and the entire Vemanad lake that could contain 1.63 billion meter cube of water. Sorry, it can contain only say 0.6 billion meter cube of water. But unfortunately, due to the rain which intensified during August 9 to August 16, as you can see in the picture, 1.63 billion meter cube of water it came into the place. And the water bodies in Kuttanad, including the Vemanad lake, that was the biggest water body in Kuttanad, it could not sustain, it could not withstand that much water. So, naturally flood happened. So, the surplus 1 billion meter cube of water that caused flood during that time. What happened during this 2018 flood is the reverse of what happened in 1924, and there are reasons for that for sure. As we discussed, in 1924 flood, the population after the flood, the population has increased because the soil became fertile and people started coming to the place and stayed over there. Migration happened to Kuttanad. Whereas in 2018, the built up area in the locality has increased to 37%. It is a huge number. As far as a wetland system is concerned, 37% built up area is a huge number. In 2020, the Landsat images of say Landsat 1 to Landsat 8, it showed that in 2020, by 2020, the built up area has increased to 37% from merely 3% in 1973. If it was only 3% in 1973, we can imagine how much would be the built up area in 1924, would be much less than that. But in 2018, because of this large amount of built up area, which would be some built up area would be in the river basins, floodplains for sure, the damages were enormous. And due to these damages, even though the productivity of the land increased, people started going away from the place. Many people now are trying to go to other places. So, this is the difference between 1924 and 2018 flood with regard to the social activities happening in the place. Migration happened in 1924 and the other way is happening after 2018. But of course, that is only to a limited extent. Now, let us see this Landsat 8 images, which is before flood and after flood. Before 2018 flood and after 2018 flood. You can see there are two images which are placed side by side, which is a very famous say picture in newspapers during 2018 during the flood. So, the first figure shows that the flood was not that much. I mean, it was before flood only. So, the rainfall started only. It is in February 2018. So, rainfall just started during that time, and there was no flood at all. You can see the Vemanad lake very clearly. But on the right, you can see the Vemanad lake and the other river system, other water body system. It extended to the habitable places. And you can see clouds also in the second figure, that is in August 2018. So, because water has spread into the entire wetland system, nearly the entire wetland system in Kuttanad, much of the habitable places they went underwater, and people and their belongings were affected. They have to run away to other places, and that is history, we know. So, some numbers as you can see in this slide, a comparison between the past and the present flood. The rainfall which is received in 1924 was 3,368 millimeters, causing a devastating flood for sure at that time. But because the population was very small, the effect on humanity was much less, but even then there were many casualties for sure, because adaptation measures and mitigation measures were not to this extent at that time. However, the rainfall which was received in 2018 is only 2,378 millimeters. You can see that is 30% less than that received in 1924. And the spread is over 88 days, 61 days less than, rather 61 days more than that the deluge in 1924. So, the spread was more and the amount of rainfall was less in 2018 in comparison to 1924 flood, but at the same time the casualties were more. If you take the entire state of Kerala, the casualties and the damage which it caused was more because of the large amount of built up area and people staying in floodplains, etc., etc. The devastating effect was severe in 2018 than that in 1924, owing to drastic change in land use pattern. That is a point which is to be noted here. The drastic change in land use pattern, as I pointed out earlier, in the wetland region Kuttanad, it is 37% of built up area was there in Kuttanad in 2020 in comparison to 3% in 1973. This is also information which is received from Landsat 8. So, you can also see that there is a drastic reduction in the wetland by 83% between 1973 and 2020. This also has been received from Landsat images. So, it is a alarming situation. If the wetland system, if the wetland reduces to 83%, then there is obvious chance of frequent floods, frequent say flash floods as well as long say floods. It can happen. Also to be noted that the land surface temperature, that is the temperature at the interface between the earth's surface and its atmosphere given in the particular reference as referred over there. In 2021, there is a rise of LST, the land surface temperature, by about 4.72 degrees centigrade in comparison to 2014. So, that also increased the damages due to flood, and that also enhanced the flood situation. Well, the major thing is that encroachments of river basins, excessive quarry mining, not in Kuttanad but other places of the state for sure. They caused ecological imbalance and that prevented smooth water runoff. So, many of the water bodies which would have been flowing freely otherwise were blocked because of encroachments. There are plenty of examples which I could show for this encroachments in Kuttanad as well as other parts of the state, and because of that the free water flow is prevented and flood is a kind of a scenario. I can just quote an example at this point of time. I am a person who is hailing from Kuttanad, and I have studied in government schools in Kuttanad only. So, I had to travel 4 kilometers from my house to my school, and during the say I got to travel on my foot only. There is no kind of boats available, there was no kind of other kinds of vehicles available at that time. I had to just travel by my foot. On the way, I had to pass through the side of a canal which was almost of 1.5 kilometers long, and it extends till the school. When the roads came up in the later half of 1990s, the entire canal has been filled up and that has been converted into a road. Now you cannot see this, you cannot see even a trace of the canal. Where does the water go? This is only an example. Where does the water go which have been flowing through the canal? The water will go to the habitable places, and this happened for many of the, this is the situation for many of the canal systems or many of the river systems in Kuttanad. Some of the passage of water was blocked, some of the canals were entirely filled up for say road construction. You can see some of the images of this 2018 flood, which were taken in my own mobile camera. You can see some of them. So the picture which you see in the screen is the Pulingunnu church. You can see the water has extended up to, there was a road, there is a road in front of the church. You cannot see the road now. This is a picture taken from the Manimala river. So the road cannot be seen, the entire road is now flooded, and you can see the compound wall is partially flooded. Inside the church also there is flood water. The entire compound of the church is flooded. You can see the road, one of the roads which is partially flooded. You can see the people who are walking in the road. I was also walking through the road only, but you can see one thing which you can notice over here is that the level of water, because Kuttanad is a wetland system, the water will spread into the area, and the rise of water in many places is not to a very great extent. So the rise of water may be up to a level of, let's say, 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet, not more than that for sure. The roads are flooded during 2018, but the level of water is only up to that say like 1 feet or 2 feet, etc. But if you go to some of the houses, you can see that many houses are below the road level. Some of the houses you can see water up to half the door height, and sometimes in some houses it went up to the door height also. So people have to run away from the place during that time. This is my institution. You can see the compound is flooded. This is the place through which we have to enter into the institution. You can see I went on top of the building, which is a 5-story building over there, and took a photograph below. You can see the buildings which are below are inundated, but only partially. Many of the equipment which were placed inside the building got damaged because of flood. Another photograph on the towards the front side of the particular say compound, you can see there is a volleyball post. You can recognize the volleyball net is above water, so you can imagine what is the depth of water below. So you can walk through the water for sure, but maybe your water may be at your say your knee height to somebody, it is maybe up to the chest height to somebody else. It's a very common scenario which you can see in many of the polders. See, on the right side you have the water body, left side you have the polder or the Padashekaram or the paddy field. Very thin bund is separating the two, and the bund has been broken and water is flowing say fiercely into the paddy field. The paddy field would have been paddy would have been under cultivation, but that entire cultivation is going to be lost because of this. It's a very common scenario. Bund breaking is a very common scenario. Another picture which you can see during that time, these are kind of rescue operations. So many of the boats could come to the place just like that, and people who were residing in the place could be taken to other places just like that. These are all say you can see the I have included this photograph just to show that what is the level of water in the particular place. There is a portico in front of the principal's cabin, and the level of water is only that much at that particular place. It is a peak flood. It is the photograph is taken on 16th of August 2018. Another boat which is rescuing people. You can see these are also some of the other photographs, and all the people who were residing inside the building, they were taken off with the help of volunteers. So these are kind of adaptation operations. This is one of the rooms or many rooms in the college building. They became like kind of hospitals where people, aged persons as well as people who are having some diseases were being laid down. Well, some persons were taken to say hospitals by the volunteers. So these are rescue operations. The kind of bridges as you see in this picture, they were like hindrances to such rescue operations. That is why I included this kind of a picture. So there were many small kind of bridges which were running across water bodies, but during the passage of the boats, this kind of bridges, they were like hindrances. So the boat they have to go say another roundabout way. you can see this is a road bridge, and people used kind of road bridges to park their vehicles, and also they use such kind of bridges as as cattle sheds. So, the cattle were tied over there and they went to rescue homes. So, this was the old library building which was inundated at that time, and that library building has been removed. I mean, that is replaced by another building now. Now, these are some say pictures of some of the houses which we visited, and many of the houses were retrofitted and some of the houses were reconstructed. You can see the building on the top left, that building was retrofitted. There is a large crack, you can see vertical crack over there because of the flood, because that may be because of soil settlement. So, we will see the reasons of this in detail in one of the coming sessions. You can see the building at the center, so it has also underwent much of the damages. The building on the right top, that is a building of, that is a house of one of the college staff members, and that building has tilted. It has undergone a differential settlement, and finally it was demolished and a new building was constructed over there. You can see the building say on the bottom, left bottom, it was demolished by itself during the 2018 flood, and that building was reconstructed. The building in the middle, that was also another one which is retrofitted, and a rescue shelter you can see on the right bottom. These are rescue operations only, rescue as well as rehabilitation operations happened in the college during that time. So, some of the photographs just for illustrative purpose only. Now, with some general remarks, we are going to wind up this particular session. So, flood is very common during monsoon in low lying areas for sure. When Kuttanad is a place which is much of the place is more than 50% of the place is below say sea level, it is a very common scenario for sure. Water has to come to the place and reside over there for some time before it passes into the sea. Storm water flow with high velocity and devastating effects in hilly areas and midlands, that causes landslides for sure. But such kind of effects are very seldom or very meager in Kuttanad, because the land is almost at the same level and the level difference is also not that much. There is no kind of rocky strata, there is no kind of water entrapped within rock strata and causing kind of landslides, but water will flow like spreading into the entire area, and the depth of water is also not to that extent. Then too much construction in river basins, thin bunds, pockets in paddy fields, etc., they facilitated and catalyzed damages. So, as we discussed in the previous segment as well as this segment, many people reside on say pockets, in pockets which are there in the paddy fields. Initially, the pockets were made to collect the paddy over the region, maybe from certain paddy fields, but later those pockets were used by people to reside. They made their residences over there. So, those who are staying over there are affected much compared to those who are staying away. People in low lying areas are accustomed to live with flood water. Well, that is why the casualties which happened in Kuttanad due to the 2018 flood was very meager, very limited. Elevated plinth is one of the kind of flood adaptation measures, and mezzanine floors are also another kind of flood adaptation measures, right. People stayed in mezzanine floor during the flood time, and people use this elevated plinth also as a flood adaptation measure during the flood time in the ancient times. So, with that we conclude this particular session. This is with regard to the past and present flood and causing environmental issues in Kuttanad. Thank you.